It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and of the more than 200,000 cases diagnosed each year, BRCA1 and BRCA2 mutations account for as much as 10% of all breast cancer.
And while knowing you carry those genes can be empowering, it can also create some very tough choices, as the women of the Schube family know all too well.
20 years ago, I lost my sister to ovarian cancer, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer 6 years later. So I had genetic testing. I tested positive for BRCA1.
For Maxx Schube, knowing those results also meant the possibility that her daughters, Alana and Rochelle, could also be carriers of the gene, putting them at an increased risk for breast cancer. She knew that one day they too would need to be tested for that gene.
When Alana was in her 20s, they suggested that she wait until she finished college because they felt the stress of knowing her genetic outcome would be too much.
I decided that I needed to find out for myself because not knowing was just as bad as knowing for me.
So when Alana was just a sophomore in college, she went through with the testing and discovered, like her mother, she too was a carrier of BRCA1.
I became extremely proactive in doing breast self-exams. One night I felt a lump in my breast, and the moment that I felt it, I knew that something was not right.
And Alana tested positive for breast cancer at 23.
I went from being a full-time student to a full-time patient.
Alana and her doctors opted for a double mastectomy along with chemotherapy, with her family by her side.
To know that my daughter was going to have to go through what I had to go through was heart-wrenching to me.
So while I was going through chemotherapy, my sister found a suspicious lump in her breast.
It took all the breath out of me.
By that time, Rochelle, then 28, knew she also carried the BRCA1 gene.
My heart absolutely broke for her.
The lump was difficult to biopsy, so in a proactive move, Rochelle, just like her sister 8 months earlier, bravely opted for a preventative double mastectomy.
I'm so glad that I don't have to go through what my mom went through, my sister went through. I have never questioned it a day since then. I do not have to worry about breast cancer anymore.
And just as things were moving forward, the family had another setback.
6 months after I was considered cancer-free, I felt another lump. I had a recurrence. Having to share the news with my family and friends that I was sick again was the most difficult thing that I've had to do in my life.
You don't have time to think about your feelings, and you don't have time to deal with your emotions.
That lump near Alana's armpit was treated with lymph node dissection, followed by over 6 months of chemotherapy. And recently, the family received some much welcomed good news.
In March 2016, I had a clear CT scan, so I'm now officially cancer-free.
Young girls need to know that this can happen to them in their 20s. Go for your checkups, do breast self-exams, know your body. Ultimately, that's what saved my girls' lives.
Wow.
That's an unbelievable,
yeah, really
unbelievable. And Dr. Marisa Weiss, a breast cancer doctor and the chief medical officer of breastcancer.org, is here with us. Well, if that doesn't tell the story, what does, right?
Right. Well, I mean, as a doctor taking care of these people each day, and at breastcancer.org, we take care of these people because they each have a precious life to be protected.
When you see a 23-year-old, do you, I feel like anecdotally now more and more young people seem to be getting diagnosed, but how common is it for a 23-year-old to get diagnosed with breast cancer?
Well, breast cancer is very uncommon at that age.
Sure.
It's like 1 in 8 women under the age of 45 are diagnosed with breast cancer. And whenever you're diagnosed at a young age, or it's in your family, or there's a man in your family, or you're of Ashkenazi or Eastern European Jewish background, you should be tested for the breast cancer gene, particularly when there's also a history of breast cancer and ovarian cancer in relatives.
So when you go in, do you say, I want to get tested, and does insurance say, okay, great, you can go ahead and we'll take care of it?
Right. Well, so if you do fall in one of the high-risk categories for having a breast cancer gene, again, only about 10% of women have a gene like that. Most insurance carriers do cover the cost of testing.
They do. And if you have the gene, we've heard of people proactively saying, you know what, I don't have a lump, but I'd rather just do the surgery.
Right.
What do doctors recommend in that kind of a case?
Well, if you carry an abnormal breast cancer gene, either 1 or 2, your risk of breast cancer over the course of your lifetime is as high as 85%, and your ovarian cancer risk is as high as 60%. And when you look at high risks like that, you do need to look at taking big steps to lower that big risk, like prophylactic mastectomies, as well as prophylactic removal of the ovaries and fallopian tubes, because those steps can reduce the risk by up to 90%.
Wow.
Now, it's not 100%, but it's close. And also, there's tamoxifen and medications like that can also help to lower your risk. And for anybody any woman out there, any girl out there are everyday steps that you can take to reduce your risk of breast cancer.
Tell us what they are, please.
Like getting to and sticking to a healthy weight, that's really important.
Yeah.
Exercising 3 to 4 hours a week, eating mostly a vegetarian-based diet, limiting your alcohol to 3 or fewer drinks per week, avoiding medicines that contain hormones, and not smoking. Those are just some of the steps that we all can take. It's hard work, but it's really worth it, because even if you start taking these steps at age 50, you can lower your risk of breast cancer by 50%.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.